All right, my next guest, as I said, I'm categorizing him as the top flat earther. As somebody else said, they put Whitsitt up there, and it could be argued. It could be argued, but I'm going to place my next guest as the top flat earther. We've had some flat earthers up. We've had David Weiss here, who some of you may say is the top flat earther, but it's not hard to get David on your show. David's a show whore. He's a panel whore. You know, he's too busy shilling that fucking app of his. So I've seen him on like pretty much every podcast and YouTube panel you could even imagine. So much love, Dave. We love you, but you know, we're not going to count your appearance as like so special. We've had Mr. Austin Whitsitt on the show where we discussed many topics, including incoherent dielectric acceleration and its apparent relationship to what we call gravity and other things. So we've had some people here, but this may be the top flat earther, you know, and he knows it. You know, like he's not blushing backstage or anything. I'm sure he wears the cloak well, and I'm sure he's used to the praise and adoration from adoring flat earth fanboys all around and across this earth. Without any further ado, let's give him a warm welcome to the Z Show. Jeran, welcome to Z Show. Nice to talk to you, good sir.
Thank you very much, my friend. Very happy to be here. I think you upset some people, though, with that claiming I'm the top flat earther. You probably pissed a bunch of people off.
All right, everybody. It is Jeran. It's really him in the digital flesh, so to speak. Much love, Jeran. Thanks for being here, dude. And thanks to our mutual friend, Rose 777. Much love, Rose.
You know how it goes. When you get a call from a Jew, you have to go wherever they point. And so I got a call yesterday, and I thought she was talking about next Thursday. I'm like, yeah, I can do it next. No, tomorrow. I'm like, oh, whatever you say, Overlord. And so I'm here because I don't want to be called an anti-Semite. So
they seem to run everything. Are the Jews running the flat Earth community too? Okay, let's go there, Jeran. Let's go there. I'm going to basically throw out the name of 3 Jewish people, and I want you to rank them in terms of your in their Jewiness, like the top Jew.
Okay.
Like the number 1 top Jew, then the second Jew, then the third Jew. All right.
So like if somebody dropped a nickel, who would be, in what order would they be picked up?
Well, that's certainly one of the factors we're going to have to consider is their ability to secure and maintain, let's say, financial resources, a la fiat. That's right, Angela Baby Carson. I'm glad you're here. I knew you'd be excited. All right, so 3 names. Alex Stein, Dave Weiss, and Rose 777. So who's the most Jewy of that? And then I'll give my opinion. And then who's the second Jewiest, and then obviously the third? What are your thoughts?
I'd say Weiss first, and then Rose, and then third would be Stein. So Jewiness, yes.
All right, so why does Weiss take the cake as the top Jew? Is that because he probably has the most money, or what's the deal?
Just typical. I mean, the guy's just he's great. But when we were in Vegas, we actually saw him collect one of those slot machine tickets that had like 11 cents on it. And Austin and I were just gonna like leave it there, and then he like came behind us and picked it up. So he definitely
compelling evidence, Jeran. Yes. That's compelling evidence regarding his hebiness. Rose thinks we should include the nose factor. I don't know, Rose. Like, I don't know if we could measure Jew noses here. That might get a little too racist.
Community guidelines.
Okay, so who'd you say was second? Rose is second?
Rose is second for her organizational skills, her leadership skills, her producing skills. And I don't even know what to think of Stein. So I don't think of him as much of a J ever. But I guess
is he not? I thought he was the long lost child of Gilbert Godfrey, but I could have been wrong about that. So I don't know.
I know I think he is by name, but not. He doesn't practice it or anything that I know of. But neither do these guys. So, I mean, again, right. I would say he's last though. Did I say it wrong?
So what's up with him, dude? He interviewed you recently on his show. Is that correct?
I've been on a couple times. No, I think it's okay. I mean, again, he's that kind of guy that. And we knew this from the very beginning, was going after fame. he wanted to be famous or kind of propelled. And so, I mean, I remember even talking to Dave Weiss when we started Baby Truther Show. I'm like, Alex is not going to be here long. He's going to be gone. And he's like, yeah. So, I mean, we both agreed that Alex did the kind of things that some people don't do to get where he wants to go. And he's doing things right now that nobody else is doing in internet lore or whatever. As far as in the face of some of these politicians or going these places and going to city council meetings and things like that. But yeah, I mean, for the flat Earth community, he's going to be a disappointment, which is pretty much going to be understood at this point. I think some people were really saying right when he got his job, right when he got his show, they said, "Oh, he'll never talk about flat Earth. That he's gone. He'll never talk about it again." And now that he's talking about it on the show, they have a problem with that too. So it's just typical, like anything else in the community. You're never going to please everybody, so don't even try.
It is a tough community. It's a small community in a lot of ways, growing. But I always say this about flat earthers, Jeran. We know each other when we see each other. It's like a thing we pick up very instantaneously. Within a very short conversation, I could pick up if somebody's real deal or not. And it's a goofy community. I get it. Well, let's look at it, man. I mean, nobody's being promoted in the algorithms as far as those who present here on social media. So I do think it's a crabs in a bucket kind of thing. What is it like for you, dude? Like I said, I mean, jokingly, I referred to you as the top flat earther, but in regards of YouTube flat earth channels, I mean, obviously, dude, you are on top. You got to pull a lot of arrows out of your back, or what's going on with that, man?
It's been
people,
tough. I mean,
people like to go after the, people want to knock the guy on the top of the hill, king of the hill type of thing. They want to take you down. So, how's that been?
It's been okay. I mean, again, like I said, I think that people that go after other people kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, I've also learned in this that each person is their own person. So to try and be like, oh, everybody needs to act like me, everybody needs to run their channel like I do, is ludicrous, right? So you're supposed to, it's YouTube, meaning I want to let Z do whatever he wants to do on his show. And I would hope that he would let me do whatever I want to do on my show. And unfortunately, in this community, there's people who want you to do things their way, or else they will attack you. Now, many people will back down and start doing it their way. And I'm just not that kind of guy. I'll never back down. So I'll just keep doing what I do. And it pisses people off. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I find there's factions amongst the flat earthers,
Right.
ones that you would never even think of. Certainly there's the, let's say the doctrine Bible believing faction, right? That's a big one. And they are quite passionate. I mean, to them, flat earth equals Jesus equals Old Testament. I don't even know where to like chop that whole fucking, illogical argument apart, but man, they slam me over the head with it too. There's obviously the strictly scientific method group, which I like, by the way. I'm looking at the flat Earth debate community. I like Nathan Oakley. I like his crew a lot. I like everybody, Jeran. I'm one of those people. I like everybody, especially in the flat Earth community. So I admire certain people's adherence to the scientific method. Here's the thing, though, Jeran. Can't we all agree that pretty much every flat earther adheres to the scientific method? I mean, come on. We're the true scientists here. So, just people want to be dogmatic about it. They want to close down other conversations. God forbid you talk about ether while they're at the same time promoting photons when it comes to light, which to me are equally as unevidenced. To me, at least, ether makes sense.
Kind of
but I want to get. What was that?
I said photons are impossible. I mean, first of all, how would they're traveling at some speed and hitting your eye and not doing any damage? They're going 80 or what is it, like 600 and something million miles per hour.
Yeah, but the speed of light purportedly is.
Yeah. So again, there's no photon.
So here's the way I look at it. Dude. I have a history in acoustics. Okay, so I have a lot of training and work with acoustics. All right. What I know about sound, which is mechanical energy, and it's basically acoustical energy, it's vibrating air particles. You see, it's the particles. There's a background medium that are transmitting a wave, which is basically sinusoidal oscillation. Is it crazy to conjecture that light would function in the same way? Ergo, a background medium, a medium that was proposed through antiquity by the ancients as ether. You can look at the alchemists. I always say this, Jeran. The oldest knowledge that I've come across on this earth goes back to Hermetics, man. It appears to be some type of pre-Diluvian knowledge, if we can think of that. At least 6,000 years old, if we're going to take any conception of history, which I know is tough to go by. My point is, if we're to look at this knowledge, it specifically talks about the ether. Why should we disregard it now? It's the same way how people disregard the flat earth as an archaic and basically, ancient type of understanding that we should disregard. So I get what you're saying about photons and basically the impossibility of it. So I'm kind of with that, man. But getting back to this, this diverse flat earth community, there's so many, man. We have Rising Earth now, which I don't, Jeran, I don't hand wave dismiss the Rising Earthers because they're serious. Let me ask you about it. You're the guy that asked. They're fucking dead serious, dude. And they make some compelling arguments. Let's get into it. So here's how I have framed their argument, because they come here and they make it to me.
Maybe you frame it in a way that makes more sense to me, because I think it's easily argued against, but not if you're Nathan Oakley. So for me, it's easily argued against, but it's not Nathan Oakley, because Nathan Oakley believes in relative density alone. And if that were true, then the problem would be the problem that they're pointing out.
All right, so let's chop it up. So we can call them the Dellites. It just seems like our friend from Beyond the Imaginary Curve has kind of picked up the torch for the Rising Earth. Okay, so Whitsitt, I had a conversation with Whitsitt, and he debunked it with different gravity force, a different force of gravity around the Earth. Whitsitt basically posited that gravity is different around the Earth, and that debunks a rising Earth because it would have to be uniform. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. They basically make the argument to me is what we call gravity, which is just basically weight, is not a cause, but an effect of a cause, which I think we could all agree with. Can we both agree with that, Jeran, that gravity is an effect of a cause?
Sure.
All right. So they say the same thing. Now, popular science and the standard model of physics presents it differently. They posit gravity, basically the theory of gravitation, as one of the four forces of nature, which is completely unevidenced to me, along with the strong and weak nuclear forces. I just see electromagnetism, electrostatics as the only force that could be demonstrated, so it means the other three are bullshit. So, okay, we can all agree that gravity is an effect of a cause and not the cause in itself. The Rising Earthers say that the rising Earth is the cause. Their biggest proof to me, and I'd like to hear if you've been presented with this, is that relative density disequilibrium ceases in a free fall, which to them would simply be stasis. Okay? That's what they keep pointing to me, is that if something is in a free fall, relative density disequilibrium no longer functions. All right. And this is their biggest argument. And they are quite they're quite ferocious with it. They don't let me off of it. If I bring up anything other like, put it this way, if I say that Earth is fixed and immovable, they will fight me on it every time, because they actually think it's rising at a steady rate. Right. So is that your understanding of their argument regarding relative density disequilibrium and how it ceases to function when something's dropped? Has that been presented to you?
Not really, but I think it's a non-starter, because you're saying when an item is dropped, which means then it's heading down, which means you're saying it's in free fall, which means it's already been affected by the relative density. So to say it ceased to exist, well, then how is it going anywhere? Why is it going down? It's going down because it's more dense than the medium it's in. So to say it just eliminates it completely. What the problem with relative density is, there is no reason for it to go down. Now they'll just say, because I said this at the beginning when I used to argue relative density, was that I said, well, maybe it's just always been that way, or down is down because that's just where God put it. And I didn't think we needed a mechanism for it. But then listening to Bob and Whitsitt, and the fact that they don't account at all in relative density for the electrostatics, which is everywhere, which is on every item. So all of a sudden, then when you see the way that the atmosphere is layered with the different amount of voltage as you go up, then I can see where, oh, okay, that sets the down. So once you have the down set, then you should expect things to act differently when going down, since that is the direction where weight goes. So if you hold a glass of water, I think that I've heard them say before, why is it that if I move it to the right, the glass, the water sloshes to the left? If I move it to the whatever, vice versa. And then if I move it up, then the water will go to the bottom. But if I move it down, it stays at the bottom. And that to me is ridiculous, because that's the direction it goes. So you can't move something down. It's already going there. That the water in my glass right now is already going down, right? It's already going down. It's heading down. It's just the glass is supporting it. So if you dropped it and it doesn't act the same as when I move it left or right or up or down, that's because there's a downward direction.
Fair point.
So for me, I don't really, this is where I get kind of stuck, is I don't really understand the argument beyond that. They keep going back and saying, oh, well, if you're in this thing and you fall down, and to me, it's the same people. It's the same problem I have with, and I don't want to say that it's not important, but same thing I have with the people who think the Earth is convex, right? Or concave, whatever one they say, that, the Cyrus teed and it's curving upward. My main problem with the whole thing from the beginning is I don't think people are upside down. I don't think people are antipode. I don't think any of that's true. So I can't replace that with saying, oh, now people are antipode above me. Now people are upside down on top of me. No, I don't think that there's people on that wall over there or standing that direction. So I don't believe in that either. It's kind of the same thing. It's just, it seems like people get into a direction and they start to adopt that idea, and then they just stick with it. And I don't think it jives. I don't think it connects with reality. Like, I feel like everybody's on a stationary plane. We're all standing upright. So until there's evidence that denies that, then I'm going to believe that. So the globe model doesn't seem to be evidence that supplies that. It seems like a ad hoc, makeshift, nonsense conception, where to start with, they need things to fly through space without being impeded or without being stopped. So they would just say, okay, well, there's this vacuum where everything's flying in the vacuum, which a vacuum doesn't even exist in and of itself. If nothing can't exist. So what if you ask somebody, what's space? What's in space between the Earth and the moon? They would say, oh, well, there's vacuum is very low pressure and it's got like one atom or one molecule per square meter. Well, what's the rest of the square meter? What is the rest of it? And if their answer is nothing,
they'll say nothing. Right.
Well, nothing doesn't exist. So they got a problem right from the start, that their whole entire model bases it off of things that don't exist. Things can't travel 1.2 million miles per hour through a vacuum and not be impeded by anything. The atmosphere just stays stuck to it. It's ludicrous. That's just a absurd belief. So their whole model, the atmosphere sticking next to the Earth because of gravity next to a vacuum, impossible. They try and give you some, it's a gradient. Yeah, okay. Well, is there ever a higher pressure next to a lower pressure? Well, then they merge. They equalize. So yeah, as far as I guess I haven't heard any compelling evidence beyond that to tell me that the Earth is moving upwards, which just seems, again, I believe the Earth is stationary. That's what we feel. So just to replace spinning with flying upwards at a ever increasing speed doesn't seem to jive with me either. Now, again, if evidence was shown and that's what was shown to me, then I have no choice but to go there, right?
So I agree. We need to stick to the evidence. So some would say, what evidence do we have to support electrostatics as the cause for what we call gravity? What would you say?
Well, I don't think it's the cause of what we call gravity. The cause of gravity is weight. Items have mass and density, right? And then as far as the electrostatics, every item has electrostatics, and you can measure the voltage as you go up. So I think it increases 100 volts per meter, which means, very quickly you get very high in voltage, which way above us versus what's at the ground. And this is what they've been hiding. They've been hiding free energy. They've been hiding things that we could gather from the atmosphere itself. Now that we find out there's like 350 mile per hour winds in the jet streams, I mean, you could put items up there that would generate power for the whole world, but this is not their direction. So don't be surprised. Yeah.
Right. Interesting point about the winds, the jet streams, and etc. It just brings to mind a common flat earther argument is flights in the so-called southern hemisphere, right, and the inconsistencies regarding those, especially the flights from, let's say Australia to South America. They're claiming now they're running direct flights that have time frames that would contraindicate, let's say, a typical, say, a Gleason's version of the map. Do you think they're using things like jet streams, planes that are faster? It's not hard to increase the speed of a plane, and especially if it's a certain type of plane. They do it all the time to make up time on standard commercial flights.
Right.
Let's assume they are flying these direct flights at speeds that maybe would be somewhat surprising to flat earthers. How could we account for that, and what have you heard?
Well, I think the way I've proven it to myself is if you look at the flight logs of the planes going, like you said, Sydney to Santiago, that direction. And I believe it's like 13 hours or 12 or 13 hours, whatever it is. And that's 6,000 miles. Or is it 7,000? No, I can't remember. 7,000. I think 6,000 is to Auckland. So 7,000. And if you do that over 12 hours or 13 hours, I think it comes out to like 550, right? Miles per hour. So that's great. So that means that the plane's going 550 miles per hour in that direction. But the problem is we know that there's jet streams there. And in the paper I found recently, it says that they measured them to 350 miles per hour. So, and we know that they're pretty stable. Think about every time you've gotten up in a flight and gotten up to cruising altitude where, 34,000 or above. Generally, that's when the flight smooths out, right? You generally move pretty smooth up there. That's why they take the seatbelt light off. They start serving drinks, things like that. And you are moving in the jet stream. So the jet stream just carries the plane along. Must be bands of air that kind of move. So at 350 miles per hour, now what you have to believe is if that's true, let's take less than that. Let's say 250 miles per hour. Let's not say it's a max wind. It's just half that. So at 250 miles per hour, now you have to realize that the plane that you just said was going 550 is actually going 300 and is then utilizing the 250 mile per hour jet stream. So for a total of 550, that's ludicrous. No plane would purposely go at half of the speed it can go just because there's not even nobody's given a reason. Why does it do that? So what you should do is add that 250 on top of the 550. And now all of a sudden that plane's going 800. And now when you take the 800 miles per hour over, what do we say, 13 hours, 10,400. So all of a sudden it is conceivable, and I'm not claiming this is the distance, but it is conceivable that, a distance that they tell us is 7,000 miles is more like 10,400. Now, the reason I don't think it's that much is I do believe they took the north and they increased the size. So the north is actually lied about. It's bigger. I'm sorry. They make it bigger than it actually is. And the south, they lied about, and it's actually bigger south than it is, than what they're showing on the globe. So essentially what they were able to do, because people think that miles are measured. Like I've heard somebody say like, oh, if I drive across the United States, my odometer would be correct. Shut up. You've never done that. Nobody's ever done that and use their odometer to you're going up hills and down hills and around curves and bends. You can't measure that way. So could it be possible to every 10 miles add 2 miles? The answer is yes. Easily. You would never notice.
So just to confirm, you say the what they purport as, let's say, the land area of the so-called northern hemisphere, you think is off, and you think it's actually larger than they're saying. You think there's more land in the north or less land in the north?
No, smaller than they say.
Smaller. Okay. Interesting, because a lot of people will claim that in northern hemisphere matches up to the globe, let's say, math and the longitude and latitude lines. That's a common refrain, is that it's the same, but you think it's different.
Well, I'm a weird believer. I think that the equator is probably more like 20,000 miles, not 24,901. So, and I think that because nobody measures that, they may think that they do, but anytime you measure something, if you're using GPS, for instance, if you're flying a plane from point A to point B, the distance has already been measured. So you can't change that distance. That's the distance that GPS tells you you're going. So it's very difficult to ever prove what I'm saying. However, I can prove it kind of easily, and just how many miles from New York to San Francisco is 2,500, right? And how many miles from San Francisco to Hawaii? It's about 2,500. Okay, now look at how many time zones we have in each of those. There's 3 hours between New York and California, and there's 3 hours between California and Hawaii. So that means if we take that idea, then it means that for 2,500 miles, there's 3 zones. So you can divide 25 by 3 and get the hour distance of the sun. So what do we get? 2,500 divided by 3 is going to give us 833. So now you just take 833 and multiply it by 24, and then you get your 24 hours, and you get that, and the answer is 20,000 exactly. So I think that the equator is 20,000 miles about, and then so think about that. That means that everything inside in the north, they tell us that it's bigger than it really is. I'm saying
Right.
it is, yeah, right. So that we believe that those areas are a little bit bigger than they are, and it's not a lot. I mean, it's little bits here and there. None of us know what's north of the United States. I mean, nobody's going up there. Nobody's going to Canada. Nobody's going to the North Pole. So could those distances be smaller? Yeah. And how would anybody know? Especially what they've done brilliantly with planes is planes fly and get to where they're going, all computerized, right?
Right.
But at this point, like you said, everybody's been on a plane. Everybody's taken off 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late, but you get where you're going on time. That's because planes can get up to different flight levels where there's different winds, and they can actually make up time, or they can, if they need to, go slower to get there rather than get there early. They don't want planes getting there early. What if you got there early? You would have to circle around the airport or something because you can't land yet. So really, they just make sure the plane gets there when it's supposed to get there. And that's
Here's a question. Here's a question for you. The biggest gotcha that the globe defenders try to hit flat earthers with is the southern star patterns. Okay. Sure. I'm sure you've been faced with that countless amount of times. I've altered how I approach that question, and sometimes it depends who I'm discoursing with. And so we can always give them the old, what does the sky have to do with the earth you're walking on? Yeah. But that being said, with that argument aside, when people claim that the stars move in the opposite direction, quote unquote, below the equator, or that the Southern Cross can be seen from 3 different positions, diverse positions in the so-called Southern Hemisphere, that should be impossible. What's your typical refrain regarding that?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't really have a typical one. I mean, for me, I think it's explained in that little half dome glass piece that everybody has, right? So you can take that glass dome and you can look through various angles of it, and you'll actually see those stars. Say you put stars below it, so they're turning. You'll actually see that it creates almost an anti-solar point, but it creates an anti-point in the other, wherever you're looking, right? So that each person, when they look south, which is directly south of, directly behind north, turn around, they see the conglomeration of the stars turning in an empty space there. So each person, it is in each person's south. And as weird as that sounds. So when you say everybody's seeing it from the same, well, now let's put people inside of my glass dome, right? So we put people down there and we said, okay, look around. They would each see the southern stars turning around, and they would say it's impossible, therefore they live on a sphere. But they don't. They live in the glass dome. So I think we sometimes give in to the heliocentric ideas too much, and we forget that. Imagine being here without being told about the heliocentric model. How differently we would look at the Earth. How more magical would it be? How the impossibility of materialism, the possibility of atheism, that all goes away. The only reason anybody would ever even consider atheism is because somebody told them that we accidentally big banged here and that everything just kind of came from nothing. Amoebas grew into humans and dinosaurs died off, but the squirrels lived and we became them. So the only way you could ever even fathom that idea, same thing with the spinning Earth, same thing going 1.2 million miles per hour, same thing with a great attractor and the Big Bang and nebulas. And the only way you can ever posit that is to give them their religion, which I don't think we should do. I don't think we should do that. I don't think that they need to convince us, not at the age of 2, not through indoctrination, not through forced education and requirements of getting the test right and getting all the answers right. And those who do well on the test move on to become teachers and get good jobs. Not through that method. That's absolutely not how you would teach children. You should do it differently. And if we wouldn't have been hoodwinked like that, I think that we would recognize some things that I even say, where I say the Earth is all that there is. So there is, when you say, what's 50 million miles that way? Well, that's kind of ridiculous. The Earth is all that there is. And there's nothing above it or below it. When you say that, it's because you've been sold this idea of the Earth in space and it's floating. And so what's above it? What's below it? Where's it going? What's it doing? Well, the Earth itself that we live on is not going anywhere or doing anything. It's magical. You could say it's in the mind of God. You could say it's in a dimension, which could be true. There might be other dimensions right around us that we don't even know. Right? You wouldn't even know that somebody's sitting right next to you because they're in a different dimension. We don't even see that. So that's
Well,
a possibility.
here's the thing, man. It's like they're just presupposing their model. It's a classic begging the question.
Correct.
Like, let me talk to my audience here. Like, DeFreak, I know you're not a flat earther, but you've been in my channel way too long to be asking retarded questions like this. Are the other planets fake in the solar system? What you don't realize is there's an implicit question within your explicit question when you say other planets. Why don't you listen up to Jeran here as he's trying to tell you that there's no proof Earth is indeed a planet. But
Correct.
I'll try to be nicer to you, DeFreak, because I know you're a good guy. But that's the thing.
So you just
Jeran,
fell for exactly what I just said, right?
he's
just said
evidencing the point that he's
Yeah.
evidencing the point that you just said is it's a begging the question. They presuppose
Right.
the model that's being discussed, okay? And that's what people do constantly. It's a Glober thing, it's an indoctrinated thing, it's a mind fuck. How do we, Jeran, why do some people see it and other people can't? How come some people can see this like you and I very clearly? It's frustrating to me, but I'm learning to, my process here and discoursing with people, it's refining me in terms of how I deal with people. I make it fun sometimes and I goof on people, but there's a frustration aspect to it. I'm sure you experience it also. How do we proceed? But more importantly, what is it that enables some people to see through the deception and other people not to? Is it a spiritual thing? Is it a mental thing?
I would say it's a testicle thing, but there's too many girls that are awake, so we can't really say that. But
right, because it takes balls, dude. It takes
Yes.
balls to challenge the authority because
Absolutely.
there's consequences. There's
Absolutely.
consequences, dude.
Yeah,
Because
Simon Dan is so scared of his own shadow that he's afraid if he ever stepped outside the science box, he has nothing to defend himself other than his own thoughts, and he's scared shitless of that. So this is the problem with all
Right.
Globers, is that they're all afraid of, if they even concede, this is why they can't concede 1 point, right? Because if they concede 1 point, then they feel like their whole connection to their religion is being challenged. It's just going to fall apart for them. So there's some people who have taken the easy road. Think of how easy it would be, Z, if you and I tomorrow just decide, let's just be Globers again. Let's believe in science. They've got it handled. They've got everything working. Look at, we can use our phones and we can use our computers. So the Earth's a sphere, and life becomes easy for us. We no longer have to be smart. We don't have to be intelligent. We don't even have to pretend, because anything that anybody challenges us on, we just always fall to the science. Science. So you can really quickly and easily take care of a huge portion of your life, which is the intelligence, the growth, the research, you can get rid of all that. And you can just worry about Taylor Swift and how many times is she going to be seen on TV, and you can bet that on the football game this weekend. So there's people who've chosen that route, and they like that route, and this is what the scariest thing about this is. The enslavement here has been adopted by the slaves. They've been, they're now excited to be slaves here, and they don't want other slaves bucking the system because they're afraid of what comes on the other end of who's the new master going to be, right?
Well, yeah, man. Let me ask you this. Might be a bit controversial. I see a feminized society, Jeran. Just my take on it, and I see in an indoctrinated, engineered, feminized society where men have been feminized, and women have actually been masculinized, and I think it's a big problem. I think what happens is I look at everything energetically. We talked about hermetics before. The masculine seems to be the creator energy, and the feminine seems to be the manifester energy. And that works very nicely together, okay? The man sort of gives, the woman receives, all right? Gender qualities run through everything. I think gender runs through the metaphysics of this entire reality. It's just basically opposite poles of the same nature. Could that be that's why couples work well, ideally in a true state of nature.
Yes.
One that's not been fucked with.
Correct.
Could that be the problem? We have mommy and daddy authority that have taken on that role. And now we're just manifesting this world for them in this more feminine spirit, where now we're just deferring and ceding our authority and our divinity over these so-called controllers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you nailed it. Society is a cancer because you have these mainstream puppets and the TV shows and the music industry and the movie industry, and they can so easily sway the humans. And we know that people are easily swayed. We know that. We know that for sure. So it shouldn't be, I guess it's not really surprising to me. And just to get back to one thing you asked earlier when you were saying, where do I stand with is I don't try and convince people anymore, because I think the first years that I was here, 5, 6, 7 years, I really felt like it was my job to convince people. And then I realized after I read their emails and thought about it, I was like, I've never convinced one person. I've never seen an email from somebody who said, or somebody on the spot who said, "Oh, you convinced me," because I think people need to find things on their own, and I think that it's more about that search and the finding it on your own, and it feels better when you find it on your own. That's how I found 9/11. That's how I found flat Earth. That's how everything was found in its own time. There was never somebody standing across from me yelling at me, telling me to do it. Nobody said, "Jeran, you're going to believe 9/11." That wouldn't have worked. It would have actually. What happens is, and I've seen this a million times, people put up a wall. And when you put up that wall, if you take a firm position of you're a moron, you're an idiot, you're stupid, then your mind, your brain will not allow you to see your own faults. Because if you do, then you're uncovering that you're the idiot. You're the dumbass. So you're almost, your mind is protecting itself by not allowing that. And I've seen too many people get trapped in these thoughts that they just can't get off of, and they just stay there and they just keep spouting the same thing. It happens to families, right? So I've seen some people say, "I don't talk to my brother anymore." Why not? Well, because he's globe Earth and I'm flat Earth. I'm like, well, you still should be able to get along. I mean, oh no, well, we got in a big fight. So then it becomes, he called me a moron, I called him a fucking idiot. So now neither party is willing to give the other person the credit and say like, oh, you know what? You were right. You were right. I'm the idiot. People don't do that. So what they do is they dig their feet in and they just defend that position to the end. And that's what all these the globe zealots on YouTube, they'll never see it, because that's not the point. The point to them is to dig their feet in and to find the evidence that supports their version of the world. And that's pretty easy to do when when you have science backing. You can just go look at a physics book and say, see, physics book says this. That's what, Craig, whenever he debates, is all he says is that, oh, well, we make this prediction and then it matches our model. Therefore, no, that's not how things work. You can't say, oh, I think Bigfoot brings my mail at 12:30 every day. And so I go out at 1:00 and the mail's there, and therefore Bigfoot brought it. No, there's a lot more that goes into coming up with truths than just postulations. These guys actually think if we make a hypothesis and it comes true, then we were right. No. But who said that? Well, I just made that hypothesis that Bigfoot brings my mail every day at noon. I go out at 12:30 every day. The mail's there. Therefore, Bigfoot brought my mail. No. So the problem is that people just run into this problem. And the Globers, because they feel like we must have been taught the truth in school. So they feel like there's no way that what we are saying has any possibility of being true. None. They don't even give it.
Right.
They don't even give it a second. Right. They don't even give it a second thought, because there's no possible way that this many people are wrong and flat earthers on YouTube are right.
Exactly.
That's their feeling.
That's what I often say is most cannot grasp the magnitude of such a deception.
Right.
So in the face of overwhelming evidence that contradicts their pre-indoctrinated model, they'll reject the information, they'll reject the evidence, and they'll go back. It's basically a defense mechanism.
Absolutely.
They'll show the cognitive dissonance, they'll show the confirmation bias, and like you said, and then they're rewarded. The society will reward them. So it's basically an advanced form of operant conditioning.
Yeah. Is that like the equivalent of them? They know that people want free time and people want to do things with family and friends. And if you do what we do, you lose that time. That time is replaced with researching and discovering and getting to the bottom of things. And whereas somebody who's just given up and said, I believe in science, they are allowed to go out and enjoy life, party, have fun, whatever. So it just comes down to each person, really, what's important to them. And I think that this is a test here. This is a proving grounds. And so I think that those people are automatically discounting them or disqualifying themselves and to teach their own. I believe that it's not fair, because when I got to the age of whatever it was, 35, and I realized, oh shit, there's another model of the earth that works or can maybe work. I didn't think it was very fair that we were not told that our entire lives. We were never given any indication that there might be something wrong with the model. We were almost taught, here's the scientific method, and then here's science about space. And we just, because it's done on purpose, we put that in our heads as, oh, the scientific method must have been used to get the distance to the sun. to get these planets. I mean, that guy just asking, well, what about the other planets? Well, yeah, you've been told that those things in the sky are other planets and that they're terra firma and you can go there and land there and drive rovers there. But we don't know that to be true. So again, it comes down to who you trust. And I don't trust man on this earth. Every instance, every chance that they've ever had to lie to me, they have. Any chance they have to get. I mean, I heard a story yesterday that there's restaurants that are having their employees go on dating apps, finding girls, inviting them for a date at the restaurant, and then standing them up so that the girl eats dinner at the restaurant. So, I mean, that's how pathetic things have gotten. I mean, this is just like, this is why Google knows everything about you. Is everything's about money. It's about, we want your money. We need your money. We need your money right now. We need to know what your buying habits are so we can predict your habits. I mean, everything's about money. They just want money. And it's just disgusting. But one of those things, getting back to what we're talking about, is that the globe model is kind of, they say what? Money makes the world go round. And that is the truth. That this is why NASA can't go anywhere. This is why, because NASA employs some 60,000. You can't just lose 60,000 jobs. It just doesn't work for your economy. So they have to prop it up. They have to have all these things. They're basically a jobs program. Think about it. All the money that comes in just goes right back out, right? And I've just learned, but I was going to go off on another tangent, but taxes, but everything's just a whole scheme. And it's not even like some solvable way to get out of it. It's what comes with fiat money, debt money systems, is that you need to have all this money continually moving. And it just, even though it's taxed in every end, I mean, think of how disgusting it is. 1933 or just 1911, say, there was no income tax. So since then, now we're taxed. How many times do you think money? And I noticed this when I worked for when I sold on eBay, and I would sell a book, and then a couple of days later I'd see it now for sale by that person for more than I was selling for. I'm like, oh, this jackass, he bought my book for $10. He's going to sell it for 30 free. Then all of a sudden you see him sell it, and then you see the book come up again for $20. What? That same book again, and then you realize, wait a second, how is the government making tax every time this is sold? So the government's making 10%, let's say. So they're making $1 every time we sell this $10 book. So pretty soon the government has made more money than the book is even worth. The book is worth only $10, but the government, it's been sold 15 times. So the government's made $15 off of a 10. So once you start to realize that, you're like, oh, the whole thing's just a racket. They
Right.
keep track of that. So, I mean, it's like, it's just a scam. And the scam is to pay off our government. Our government has unlimited funds. I mean, think about, people think there's a budget and we can keep track of everything. It's ridiculous. The CIA doesn't even have a budget. So how is the CIA getting money to employ all their employees and do all their clandestine operation? It's because there's a black budget. Does some of that come from NASA? Probably. Do we think NASA is spending $88 million a day? I mean, what are they spending it on? It's a joke. So anyway, it's just the whole thing, the whole system that we're in is disgusting. I used to think maybe there was a chance at like saving it. I'm not sure that that's the goal anymore. It's more about communities getting in the right place with the right people and doing the best you can with your life while you're here, unless people are ready to overthrow the government. But like you said, they're not, because they've been feminized.
And I like what you said before about how, like, there's really no expectation in, let's say, changing the government and changing things. You can only really change yourself. You can
Right.
model behaviors, things like that. For you specifically, what do you do in your life? You have a family. What steps have you taken to, let's say, gain a degree of independence? Sure, there's a number of things: moving away from the standard fiat monetary system, securing your property in certain ways, I could imagine. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good start. I think food independence is something that's a goal, but not immediate. So as far as like, if I ever our ultimate goal is to get a house somewhere, say in Texas or something, probably because that's your best bet right now. And to have our self-sufficiency, so fruit trees and things like that. So we've kind of adopted some of that. We've got 3 apple trees in the back, a peach tree, 2 peach trees, mandarin orange. And so those should all be yielding fruit this year. So we're excited about that. And then we just really have gone to all, for us at least, all organic. We've given up all processed foods, dairy, things like that. The only meat I eat is salmon and steak, and that's like once a week or so each. And so we've just kind of made things more simple. We don't, at least for me, I don't have any like friends anymore. I know like the guys I used to hang out with, that kind of thing. So that makes life more simple. We moved away from the big city. That makes things better. I don't know anybody who lives in this town that I live in, and I lived here since 2018. So that tells you something. I would know one person. I don't know one person's name. I don't want to. So, and then there's getting rid of bank accounts like we used to have. No credit cards. That's insane to have a credit card. We have, of course, like a debit card from PayPal or whatever that has MasterCard logo. But yeah, getting rid of that kind of stuff. Like you said, going to crypto. Just not depending on government as much anymore. I mean, we pay water bill, we pay gas, we pay electric, we pay garbage like everyone else, sewer. But it's just kind of minimizing your connection to the government, I guess, or connection to society as much as possible, so that when it's time to kind of pull the cord and leave, you can. I think they get you all entwined with their programs and get you into so that you're kind of like dependent. That's what they want, right? They want you dependent. And it's just a terrible thing to do, because once you've started giving somebody money, then you give them like this victim status, and then they don't get a job, and then they depend on the government. And of course, the government wants that. The government wants anything that makes it so the government is needed. That's how you keep your job as a government. So we should expect that too, right? The government's never going to come up with something that makes everybody get along and be in unison. If they did that, then the government would be gone soon. So that's stupid. So just like vaccine companies, why would they give you a vaccine that makes you not get sick if they make money when you get sick? We have to be smart enough to see these things. It's the same thing with the government. Why would they create programs that reduce strife when strife is what causes the need for a government? It just doesn't make any sense. So government becomes too big at some point. They're there now. They're too big. They've gotten out of control. The money spending is all over the place. Nobody's keeping track of it. These guys are psychopaths for themselves. There's a revolving door of politicians and lobbyists that are just, as soon as you're done being a politician, you go become a lobbyist. The new lobbyist runs for office, and they get to become a senator, and then the door just keeps going. We don't even notice it, because we sit back here and we're like, whatever they're doing over there, it's just the same people making a bunch of money, padding the pockets of politicians. And so now I've completely got away from what your point was. What was the question again?
Just basically, steps you've taken in your life to kind of,
just becoming self-dependent as much as possible. So I don't want to ever work for somebody else again. And that's been difficult. I mean, you think to yourself I used to be a store manager of a drugstore, and I would work, maybe 60 hours a week, like, let's say 6 a.m. to like 6 p.m., something like that. And now I work way more than that. So but I also am able to take off when I want, take a day off if I want. But I never want to work for somebody else again, because that person is always going to take advantage of you, and that should be known. Anybody you're working for is taking advantage of you, unless you're able to show that they're actually giving you good compensation for what you're getting. So sometimes that's possible. Let me give an example. When I was doing crypto consultations, I was charging $100 an hour. Okay. And then when I got really busy, and that just happened for about 2 months, and then now I don't get any anymore. But for about 2 months when it was really busy, I couldn't do it all by myself. So I hired people to help me. So like Caprice or somebody like that helped Scott help me. They would do the consultations. And so I would pay them $50 an hour. So some people might look at that and be like, well, isn't Jeran taking advantage? And the answer is yes, right? I'm taking advantage of the fact that I built my name, Jeranism. I built crypto. I built this group that follows me. And I trust those people to be good consultationists. And so I'm okay with charging people $100 and then paying the person $50 and taking the little off the top for myself. Now that just maybe happened 10 times, but I'm just saying that that's kind of a way that you can become self-sufficient, is to make people appreciate and make people recognize when you do things for them, when you care about them, if you're doing it fake, like if you're CVS or one of these Walmart and these pretend corporations that make it seem like they're providing something for you, but they're really not, and they're really treating their customers like shit and that kind of thing. That's not the groups I'm talking about. I'm talking about people, self-run businesses that care about you, that would make actually, like if we upset somebody, let's say somebody came and did a consultation with Caprice and didn't like the ways that and they came back to me and said, you think I would be like, nope, sorry, you get one consultation and that's it. No, I want to make the person happy with what we've provided them. So I would do the consultation myself. So there is actually still people out there that care about the customer always being right, who care about customer service, who care about the golden rule. But those people get cleaned out by corporations and conglomerates, and that's why the world's
Right.
out, right? That's why.
Well, the corporations are being subsidized, too big to
Right.
fail type of thing. So if your corporations are being subsidized off of your public tax dollars, what does it really say about this so-called capitalist system? At
Right.
best, it could be called a crony capitalist system, and at worst, probably some type of fascism.
It's
Um,
almost communism. It's like masked communism. It's kind of because you have the elite and they make all the money. So if you are the CEO of Nissan or whatever, I mean, you're making 8, 9, 10 million a year. Whereas and you're not working, you think you're working as hard as somebody who's a salesman or somebody who's a head of sales at the dealership. No way. But it's because of that kind of corporate structure that we have where, think about the eye in the pyramid that's on the dollar, right? Really, that's what everything is. There's very few at the
right.
top, and there's a lot at the bottom who are all climbing, trying to get to the top, but they'll never actually make it.
So let's get into that, Jeran. I get this question consistently. Who are they? That's the question I get. The they that we
Jews.
like to refer to.
There's a joke. We love the Jews.
Well, it's partially a joke. Maybe it's a joke, but to me, it's partially a joke. I've done a number of presentations recently on what's called the unholy alliance between our friends at the Roman Catholic Church, the so-called Jesuits, and their alliance some 500 years ago with our Khazarian friends. They seem to kind of be the minions of the system. To me, it is spiritual, or maybe some type of non-human entity. Entities that are alluded to not only in the Old Testament Bible, but more ancient cultures like the Sumerians and many other native cultures around the world. That's where I have it placed. To me, it's spiritual with a bunch of earthly minions with maybe some potential bloodline elites connected to these entities. What are your thoughts? Who to Jeran? Who are the they to you?
I think that the they is anybody who has money and power to start, right? Because people with money and power are going to want to stay rich and stay in power. That's just required. There's nobody who's ever had money. Like, I don't care if I lose this, and there's nobody who's been in power. Like, I don't care if I don't have power tomorrow. So those people are going to take steps, and this is what we've noticed, right? They've taken those steps. This is why we should have thought when we were in school. We weren't smart enough. We were just children. But I should have thought to myself, is this the way that you would ever have a society where you would have all the children show up in a classroom and they all learn the same thing from a lady who stands at the... No, that's because the elite don't sit around and decide how do we make people more smart and how do we make them better at taking our money and how do we make them have the ability to be powerful. They would sit around and talk about how do we make them not do that? How do we create a world where they think that they're being educated, but they're really not, and where they think that they're smart, but they're really not, and they think they can take us over and they can come get riches and power, but they can't. So that's the world that we live in. And so the they is those people. And why would they tell us who they are? It doesn't make any sense why you would do that. You're just opening yourself up for ridicule and derision, everything. So it's better to have pawns in the game. And I think this kind of started, Freemasonry is a big thing because originally Freemasonry was kind of that in the middle group between the state and the church. And that's really what the whole world's always been run after, right? There's the church who's run people's lives. And then there's that group that doesn't want it to be the church. And that's basically, and even if you look at the flat versus round, or you look at a lot of these things, it comes down to that. It comes down to this. I even wonder sometimes if science originally thought it was a ball. Let's say that they thought it was a ball because they saw boats going over the edge. They thought that was a ball. If they would have ever found out at any point since then that it's not, they couldn't say it. They couldn't. That would be impossible for science to admit that they were wrong like that, because people would immediately flock to the church. And that's Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye. That's their worst fear. Their worst fear is that people go back to religion. And so they will do anything they can to protect that. So as far as the they is people that are protecting their interests. And so this is why the military industrial complex pushes war. They're protecting their interest. Their interest is in war. That's where they make their money. They're protecting that by making sure there's always war. So everybody is just out for themselves. And that's basically what, who the they is. It depends on what area of life you're talking about. If you're talking about the they in government, it would be those at the very highest of our government, because those people don't want to leave. They want to stay. Nancy Pelosi, millionaire. Why is she a millionaire? Well, she's getting insider trade deals. She's getting stock tips, things like that she's able to cash in on. So she doesn't want to leave that position, and she's going to do everything she can to keep it. And including, that means, indoctrinating your children to another way of thinking, or then that's what they'll do. So it's who they are as far as like names. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I mean, I think that there's some high ups, the Rothschilds, the families, the 13 bloodlines. But are they the true the true power, I wouldn't know. I would think that it would be smarter to hide than it would be to we are the Rockefellers and we have all this money and we do. I don't think that's the smartest move. Those people probably hide out, but yeah, it does seem like there's a couple families that have trillions of dollars, and that's just you can't have a society like that. It's actually not capitalism. It becomes communism with a state, and we see the state as the government, but the real state is the people with money. That's the state. They're the ones who are basically, because communism never works because you always have some group at the top. And then they have like a bunch of people below them are like, you're all communists. It's like, no, that doesn't work because then we get nothing while you get rich off of our, spoils. And communism will never work anyway because people are lazy. And if you don't have some incentive to do something, most people won't do anything. That's just truth. And then the people that do stuff, they sometimes do it for recognition or for reward. So if you get rid of that as well, then you lose a lot of your inventions and discoveries and things that people do for some sort of recompense.
I wanted to ask you, recompense. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question based on something you said about if science originally thought it might be a globe, they wouldn't be able to come back from it. I go back and forth on this. I'm to a point now where my belief is the globe was a deception since the very beginning of its propagation in terms of mainstream academia. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so why? What would be the? And I think I know the answer, and I think I know the answer. But what would be the reason then? Control, right?
Control and hide the creator. To me, possibly more lands. The why, but I think it's more mind. More mind control and more promoting their religion of scientism. Because here's the way I look at it, Jeran, is that to me it comes down to when you destroy a concept of creator or God or source or all, you by necessity destroy a concept of morals, ethics, values, and principles. See, to me, without a creator or without a God, there is no morals, because logically there's no morals. Once you take away morals, you can lead to basically the depravity that we see today that you were alluding to in our society, the disillusion of our culture, which is then ripe for control. That's kind of how I have it conceptualized, is to institute scientism to kill the spirituality, to kill the mystical, the spiritual, and things like that. That's sort of how I have it lined up in my head. And based on the people who apparently perpetrated the globe lie, it leads me down that thought. Go ahead.
No, I think what you said is accurate. And I think that, for me, the one part that would be is I do think they could have taken the flat earth and used it as control, right? If they wanted to. So I tend to think they were forced into the position that they're in. But because it seems like it's like a corrected model, right? That throughout time, they always corrected the mistakes. Like, I don't even think they realized at the beginning that 24 hours would turn the earth every day, and then 6 months later you'd be facing the wrong direction. But I think when it was brought up and then they realized that, they're like, oh shit, there's a sidereal day, it's 4 minutes times 180 days equals half of it. So they were able to get the earth to turn 12 hours. So I think that they just kind of go through and they correct things the whole way, and that's what they did with the distance to the sun. It's not getting closer to the truth, it's getting closer to a mathematic union, right? Which is ultimately what they're doing, because has nothing to do with truth. Copernicus says that in his book. Don't look at astronomy for anything other than the computation of these moving bodies. To take it as real would leave you in a greater folly, or you'd be a greater idiot than when you entered this practice. And yet that's what they teach everybody. They teach everybody that that's actually what we're supposed to be doing, is that they're believing these things, that these things are orbiting in the sky and that they're all gravitationally attracted. And again, you could just see signs of that everywhere, right? Gravity is their baby. We know for a fact when we see people say, oh, in science, if you make a theory and it doesn't match, then you throw out the theory. That's what we've always heard. And then they say, oh, well, yeah, we have gravity and then it doesn't work in the universe. So we know that there has to be dark matter there. Time out. Well, hold on. That's not at all what we were taught. Why were we taught that if it doesn't match, then throw it out? So throw out gravity and start over. Well, they can't do that because gravity is what holds the earth together as a ball. They know if they lost that, then the earth's not a ball anymore. So it's all just, it seems very, rather than a planned deception to me, it seems rinky dink. It seems like we have to add a story about a guy who measured the earth 2,000 years ago. Okay, input Aristophanes. Well, we don't have any books by him. Say that somebody else found a book and they're talking about that. So it just seems like very pieced together. It doesn't seem like a nice laid out. If it was, why don't we would have Aristophanes books? We would have these books that would be deceptions and they would lead us to where we're at. Instead, we get like stories and like weird. It's always the same story. Like, oh, he's a beta. He was good at everything. He was the library of, the librarian at the Library of Alexandria. All that stuff I don't even believe. It's just ridiculous that we ever let them. They told us that we put all of knowledge into one library and then it caught on fire and burned for 6 months. And we're just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make any sense that any library of stone would burn for 6 months. People knew it. Water puts out fire. They would go to the fucking ocean and get the water and go put out the fire. And we're just told nonsense stories people buy into, they believe. So they think all of our knowledge was erased at the Library of Alexandria to start all over. Like, that's not even how things work. So it's just, again, I keep losing what your question was.
Well, I wanted to jump on this one. What you said about the lie, and then the lie, it's like any lie, Jeran, right? Once you tell a lie, you have to tell more lies to perpetuate it, right? It's like you cheat on your wife and you say you're out with your friend, but then that story has to go because she finds out, no, your friend was somewhere else, and then and then the lie gets out of control. And the globe lie ends up with, fake ISS, fake trips to the moon. It's like now we're in a part of utter insanity just to keep the lie. Let me ask you this question. The flat earth movement, I want to call it a movement, the flat earth understanding, or let's say the globe lie understanding, seems to be growing. I don't want to say it's growing exponentially, but it seems to me, let me ask you first, do you agree that it's growing? More people are finding out. Would you agree with that firstly?
Yes, I think that's it. Yes.
All right. Then my next question is there a threshold point where this understanding will affect some degree of change in a real way? Like, it might not have to be where 50% of people on Earth understand this. Is it 30%? Is it 25%? And will it ever get there? I know you've had to think about this. I think about it constantly.
Yeah, I think you need enough people that want change, right? And that's kind of the problem, is that you have one group that's trying to get people to love life the way it is. So they're being inclusive, and they're, everything's about materiality and things that you can fulfill with somebody. Oh, I got a new iPhone. So you kind of keep people happy in that direction. But I think that that's not spiritually fulfilling. And so you're going to have those people that have that connection to spiritual that are not fulfilled in that direction. So I do think that there's a possibility of that happening. But it's going to need more work than's done. And people need to, check the egos at the door and stop attacking each other, because really we just have take 4 steps forward and then a bunch of people attack each other, and then we're back to where we started. Take another couple steps forward and then a bunch of people attack each other, because all you get is segregated audiences, right? And now you've got certain groups that, like, okay, they get 2,000 views and this person gets 3,000 views and I get 4,000 views and Witsi gets 4,000 views. So we've now taken the community and segregated it up into little bits, and now the little bits attend their shows that they like or whatever. But any kind of big truth or big understanding or big realization, it doesn't go through the community like it did back when this started. When this started, when somebody found something, it flew through the community very quickly, and everybody, adopted it. Or, when I found Mars was in, Devon Island, that flew through the community very well. That everyone picked it up and everybody ran with it. But nowadays, it's like that wouldn't work the same, because not the same. I get more people watched me back then than do now. So yes, is there?
I was going to ask you that about your channel. Well, first with the Devon Island thing.
My channel sucks.
I was going to. Well, okay, because did YouTube at one time, before the adpocalypse, were you being promoted and did they just turn that off? And did it happen around the time they just deplatformed Owen Benjamin? Jeran, I remember when I woke up one morning and Owen was gone off of every platform. And I, I wasn't a bear or anything, but I respect Owen.
Yeah.
I have a lot of bears at this channel. But I watched him get deplatformed, and I'd imagine that was the time where they fucked you over. Let's go into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, 2017, 2018 was just because again, if you show up in Up Next, or if somebody watches a video and your video plays next, that's a huge help for getting people to see you that wouldn't have otherwise seen you, right? So somebody watches they are searching about NASA and they search something NASA, fake NASA, and then I would play next. So that immediately somebody who is interested in fake NASA now gets introduced to my channel. You'd be shocked at the people maybe it's me who has a little bit of a inflated ego myself, but I've met people that are flat earthers and I say, oh, so you've heard of my channel, Jeran? And they're like, no, I've never heard of it. I'm like, what? How do you? I'm like, oh, okay. I thought that if you're a flat earther, you would know my channel. I just thought that. So then kind of learning that it's even hard to find me in the community. And if you find somebody else first that doesn't like me, then well, they're not going to even mention me. So you're not even going to hear it from them. So it becomes this weird kind of segregated. And I think this is what science does well, right? Science does well staying unified. So even Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson might have very different opinions about the world, but they don't argue with each other. They don't go online and have battles to where they call each other names and call each other shills.
Right. And that's what I was saying about the crabs in a bucket, people making false claims. Here's what I always say to people. What sense does it make that we have multiple countries now that have sent missions to the moon, not manned missions, but we have 2 space stations floating around in a low Earth orbit, apparently, multiple space telescopes, one that the James Webb that they say is 1 million miles away, which is apparently 4 times longer than the supposed distance to the moon, that just hangs out in space and doesn't move because they call it the Lagrange zone. It's just a perfect balance of gravity between Earth and the sun. How amazing is that? Fantastic. You have all these countries now, all these private industries with SpaceX, just the primary amongst those, sending people up. But yet we can't take care of things here on Earth, right? We still have forest fires. Here's what I say, Jeran. If you can have helicopters on impossible Mars where there'd be no way based on the density of the atmosphere that you could have a fucking helicopter, I don't care how many blades you put on it. If you can't get a helicopter to the top of Mount Everest or have it run in the desert, how do you have one on Mars? But my point is, there's no way you could have a helicopter on the moon, but you can't have a drone army of crafts putting out a forest fire in Canada that burnt all summer. And I was smelling it down here in New Jersey. You wouldn't have bridges that weren't fixed. You wouldn't have potholes that aren't filled. You wouldn't have kids that are going hungry. A civilization that is spacefaring would not have the problems that we have. It strains credibility and it debunks the entire space presentation on its face. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. There's no reason why you would ever attend to things in space until you were perfect on Earth. Now, even their whole theories are, I mean, what did they say? The closest star is 4 trillion miles, right? So I'm sorry, 4 light years, which is
25 trillion.
Right. So even if you took 100,000 miles per hour, which is faster than any human's ever gone, and you went 24 hours a day, 7 days a week you just send people in that craft, well, it would take them 28,000 years to get there. Okay. So that alone should tell us that we don't need to look at that at all. There needs to be no telescopes looking at distant stars. There needs to be, and I'm giving them that it's real. Let's say that all the stars are real, like they say they are, and they're huge, gigantic gas burning furnaces or whatever. But if you give them all that, there's still no reason why we would even discuss it or even fathom it or even, but again, they even admit it's all about dreams. It's all about hopes and dreams and aspirations, and you can reach for the stars and you can, that's where it ends. But yeah, the whole Elon Musk is going to take people to Mars. It's like people can't take a 15-hour flight without getting off the flight and hating each other, but they're going to go on a flight for 8 months. No, I don't think anybody's, it's just retarded. Really. It's just, it's like an open slate for them. They're able to, it's like a magician's box and they're just given this night sky where it's like, oh, I can make up whatever I want about that. I could say whatever I want because who's going to double check it? Who's going to go follow up? And I think that's what they knew from the very beginning too. I think that they knew, hey, if we can't get out of here, if we're up there first and we say we found everything and we know how big the sun is and we know what it's made of and we know what the moon is, and nobody else can go out, then nobody can ever prove us wrong. So we will be de facto right forever. And that's kind of where we are, that we try and argue against them. And then these guys go to NASA and then return to me and be like, you said this, but this NASA's site says this. It's like, okay, you can't go to the people I'm telling you are lying to you and then gather their information and bring it back to me and be like, no, they're not lying because they say this. Yeah, but that's
NASA's all they have. Like Joe Cool again pipes up in the chat. He says, you guys are going to be upset. We're going back to the moon this year and the next. I can already hear it. That's CGI. That's CGI.
Tell them money on it. Money on it, Joe Cool. I'll bet you $1,000 they don't go to the moon this year. But I keep doing that, and then nobody ever, and the people who do take me up on it end up not paying. Or there's one guy.
They already said they're going to delay the mission. They already said it. So
again, right? So they keep delaying it. Nobody ever goes there. You keep saying, I mean, it's so sad when you hear people say that, because this guy would have been saying that in 1980. If somebody was
Right.
saying like, hey, we're not going back to, why don't we go back to the moon? He would be like, we're going to go there. We're going to go back to the moon in 85. Oh, we're going to go back to the moon in 90. Oh, when Obama.
Well, here's another thing of Jeran about Joe Cool. He's basically, you know, I don't want to label you Joe. He's basically like a soft sit, which is funny, Joe, because I know you disregard the idea of government and people controlling you in every single way possible.
Wow.
But yet you trust the governmental agency, NASA, and that's your biggest proof when you come here and you try to you know, discourse with people like me and Jeran and others like us, dude. The fact that you don't see that logical inconsistency is kind of fascinating and mind-boggling
So he
in
thinks we
so
went to the
many
moon the
ways.
first time?
Oh yeah, he's totally on board, man. Whitey was on
Yeah.
the moon, 1969, of course.
That's a really bad look for people, because I just did a video the other day. It was like 5 hours about the moon hoax, and there's many moments in there that I show something that should immediately, to any thinking person, make them say, oh, there is a problem here. Whether it's the non-moving background that doesn't change size as they approach it, it's a sheet, it's a piece of paper with a picture on it. It's not a real place in life that you go towards. If I start going towards the hills over here on the next to my house, the hills will get closer and they'll change. They don't stay static. Everything stays static in the background. There's that. Them driving the go-kart around the moon is completely fake. You can tell there's no voice inflection. There's no, anybody can get into a seat and start bouncing up and down like you're going in a go-kart. You ever driven in a go-kart, Z?
No. A golf cart is the closest I come. I've never been in a go-kart.
So anybody who's ever been in a go-kart knows that you don't go very fast, right? They don't, it's not like they're going 60. Like, you don't go 60 in a go-kart, right? You're way too close to the ground. It would be insane. You know, you probably go 15 or 20, but it seems like you're going 60 just because you're closer to the ground. And so they seem very fast like that. So, but they also react to, you know, a bump in the road, or you know how sidewalks have cracks every relief points or relief joints every, you know, 4 feet or 3 feet, whatever. So your go-kart will feel those really good. So in the moon footage, they're like driving over gigantic rocks. You can see them driving over the rocks, and the car's just bouncing up and down, but the guys are talking like they're sitting in a studio. And that's because, of course, they're sitting in a studio. They're doing voiceovers for actors that were supposedly on the moon. So it's clear that we were lied to about that. And I would think somebody who knows that the government lies to you would recognize that, oh, if the government lies to you about things that we can go and check and verify here, then they're certainly lying to you about places you can't go and check and verify. That's the first place they would lie, not the last. People all act like the government lies. Yeah, the government lies, but they tell us the truth about all the star distances, and they tell us the truth about everything in space. It's like, no, that would never be the case. It's never like, oh, we'll tell them all the truth about that, but we'll lie to them about what a PCR test is, and we'll lie to them about things that you can actually go test and verify here. So to me, it's ludicrous that you would ever give them that. And they should have to prove it to you. If they're going to say that people went to the moon, then they need to prove that people went to the moon, and their evidence of it is...
You know what it is, Jeran? It's logic. People, it goes back to what I said about the feminization and the infantilization of men and women. It's because people react emotionally. You're emotionally connected to a pre-indoctrinated, conditioned idea of your world. So when you are presented with information, logical information that challenges that, you react emotionally. That's what children do. But again, as we were saying, that's been engineered. All right, this infantilization of society. So people just react emotionally. I presented here the first sci-fi movie ever made in 1902, Voyage to the Moon. But to me, there's a lot to be said in that movie. Jeran, I actually think the director, who was also the lead actor in that movie, I think he was blowing up the spot for these Illuminists, man. I actually think he was making fun of the Illuminati / Jesuit intelligentsia in that movie. But I can get into what?
Because they were dressed up as magicians at first, right?
Correct, dude. And throughout the movie, they're basically clowns, dude. He makes a clown show out of the whole fucking thing, especially at the end where he shows the statue and it's a science and has the laurel around it, and they're basically standing over the goofy moon. It's a total it's basically you can show them what a clown show it is, man. It's satire is what it is. But besides that, look, how did Hollywood present an idea of space before we went there? They presented the space presentation was given to us in science fiction many decades before it happened. I did a series on amazing stories which is a pulp comic book that came out in the 1920s, man. And they're showing what astronauts looked like in 1969, dude, and it was 40 years before it, man. Up in space, the same helmets. You know what's funny, Jeran? The depiction in 1920 was actually more scientifically plausible. They had guys on the moon in like metal spacesuits, like you would have a
Right.
scuba diver wearing. That at least makes fucking sense if you're going to give me the vacuum of space, not what they presented us with these basically cloth suits. It makes no with zippers and things. It's completely nuts. Arthur C. Clarke came out with the idea of satellites decades before they ever sent up Sputnik or anything like that. It's a complete joke. You guys are emotionally indoctrinated. You're acting like little babies. You keep coming here and talking to me about rights and freedoms, rights and freedoms. The biggest freedom comes from the truth. The truth is what will set you free. People like Jeran and I are trying to show you something. We may not know what the truth is, but we're trying to show you a lie. If we can uncover enough lies, you at least have a chance to discover some degree of truth. Go ahead, man. I get passionate with my because
No, that's great.
I love all you guys, but like Joe, you come here every day, and I know it's funny. See what happens, Jared? I'm sure it happens to you. It's like you said about Simon Dan and Not a Professor Dave. They develop an identity based around being the anti-flat earthers, the pro-globers, and it's reinforced with these big YouTubers. It's reinforced financially.
I'll tell you how many FTFE has, after last night's show, he's 2,100 channel members. So if anybody knows how much channel memberships cost, are $5, so you can do the math on that. How much somebody who's just doing a globe channel, making fun of flat earthers, reading from NASA, and basically a completely easy job that any one of us could do, to make $10,000 a month. Whereas I've had my channel memberships going for 9 or 10 months. I think I'm at 110 people, which is about $300 a month. So and I think that it's hard to complain about that, but I think what it's really about is, like you said, they're getting paid for that because the globe community, and I know like David Weiss would think differently. He thinks that they'd be being paid like through some clandestine operation or something. And it may be true, but I think it could also be that you've got like a unified, like there's not factions of the globe Earth. There's just FTFE and the McToon and Simon, but there's no faction. They all get views from all the audience. And so their numbers are higher and they're each getting huge amounts of donations. They're getting huge channel members. Then you look at the flat earth and we've got all this segregation going, and I'm getting 100 people and Witsit's getting 100 people and this person's getting 100 and this person's getting 100. So again, as long as people understand that that's what's going on, and not expect too much. We always get from the Globers, well, why haven't you done anything? What have you done? And it's like, listen, how would you expect us to do anything? Like, we are just some guys sitting at our computer. None of us have any funding. It's not like I can go interview people. It's not like I can fly somewhere. So it just becomes this very difficult. I guess that's my concern is I don't want to be doing this in 5 years. I don't want to be sitting here doing the same exact thing. That will be a fail for me if I do that. So it's got to be about.
So what do you see? What do you see moving forward? I see you developing these conferences, these virtual conferences. What's your 5-year plan, so to speak?
The reason I like the conferences is because I do think, and this took people having to talk to me about it. I would get people writing me emails and messages saying, like, Jeran, I get 2 hours a week to watch something. How do I choose what to watch if all your shows are longer than 2 hours? All Witsit shows are longer than 2 hours. How do I know what to choose? And we kind of got to this point where, like, man, we never really thought about that. Like, there is people out there who can't watch this constantly. Now, you might know some people in your chat that are here all your show, right? So you kind of get this feeling almost that everybody that watches your show is all like that, which isn't true at all. There's going to be people that pop in, right? So I think we get locked into that too much, or I did it originally thinking everyone had seen everything. So the summits to me are a decent price that recompensates the speakers and kind of can continue going. And it brings people to a place where they can get kind of the best information at the time. So, when Amanda Vollmer speaks, she's presenting on kind of things that she's been working on over the last 3 months, or when David Avocado Wolf, or when Jay Tolan, or whatever it is. So I like that idea of giving kind of a place to go for people to find. And in fact, I wanted to do a magazine, not like a magazine, but like an online, they have like PDF magazines or whatever they're called. But the idea would be that we would have all these channel members. So let's say I reach out to you, not channel members, channel owners. Let's say I reach out to you and said, Z, give me your 2 best videos for the month each month. So on the 31st, I want you to mail me the 2 links for your best videos. And then we have like an online magazine that has all these links to here's these 2 and here's, so that people can kind of find the best stuff. We've now like oversaturated the market, right? There's I'm doing shows a couple times a week. Wits is doing shows. There's now too much out there. As weird as that sounds, because I also like it out there. We want a lot of it out there. But here's, for me, this is the most upsetting thing. The first 5-6 years, I got people messaging me. You woke me up. Your videos changed my life. All these things. I don't get that anymore. And the reason I don't get that anymore is because I went to doing live streams. And when you go to doing live streams, the people that'll watch you live are the people that always watch you. So I'm not changing.
Right.
I'm not changing. I'm talking to the people that already have been changed. So I think I want to get back to doing some of the, because I've gathered a lot of knowledge in that time, and I've gotten some good points to where I can put together nice little videos that are maybe 5 or 10 minutes long, kind of like I used to do, that are funny, that are easy to share. And I think I would start getting emails again from people saying that I was changing their life. So that's kind of my hope, is that I could do less of the like, I'm going to stream every day. I'm going to do the show all the time. Like I was doing Speaker's Corner on Thursdays, and it just got to be monotonous. It was the same 6 people that would come on the show every Thursday and basically say the same thing. And as soon as I noticed that happening, as soon as I noticed that I have to end it. I have to move on to something else, because I don't want that. I want something new. That's why I went to the debate show. Now I'm running a debate show because I wasn't happy with the other debates. I said, I feel like if you go to a debate, you should walk away with like, well, this person believes this and this person believes that, and here's their evidence for it. Now, even my debate show hasn't gotten there yet. I don't think people really understand the sections yet or what they're for, and it's kind of going to take time. But really the goal of that is so that people can bring to the table research that they've done, things that they believe in, and say, here's a claim. I believe that the moon's doing this, this, and this for this reason. Here's my evidence. Take it or leave it, And that's kind of what I want to get towards, is rather than just so much kind of stuff all over the place. Now, again, I don't have a problem with anybody researching anything. I'm not like Nathan Oakley. I would never tell anybody not to research some subject. Research whatever you want. In fact, that's the only way you're ever going to find, I'm ever going to find something that I'm not looking into, right? If I don't think that the moon map is an example, people say, oh, the moon map matches the Earth. Okay, so it doesn't really compel me. I've watched a couple of videos. I've said, oh, it looks like they're adding some land. It doesn't really seem to match. Where's Antarctica? So because I have like this jaded feeling about it, I just don't research it. But I would never say that people shouldn't, because that's ridiculous. Now, if there is something there, how are we going to find it? Nobody's looking at it. So for Oakley and stuff to say, oh, the ether cult. What do you mean ether cult? Because Witz is talking about the ether. How is that a cult? It's like, then you are creating a cult that's a non-ether cult. So it's just stupid. Right. People just are like,
well, let's call him the photon cult, the cult of photons.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so full of themselves. Like
I like Nathan. I like Nathan.
I used to.
Should we? All right, so Jeran, we do some things on the Z show. Maybe we need to role play so you can work through some of your issues with Nathan Oakley.
Yes.
Yeah, this might be beneficial. So let me. Okay. So you're going to be Jeran, not hard, right? Because that's who you are. And I'm going to be Nathan Oakley.
Okay. Ready.
Hello, Jeran, you fundy muppet. How's your little nitwit that Austin Whitsitt? You're fundy, Jeran. What is your problem with me? I mean, I know I'm a haughty British guy who thinks I fucking know everything. Come on, Jeran, maybe we'll work this out.
I doubt it. We're not going to work this out. Yeah, it comes down to, don't say my name anymore, period. It's that easy. You don't need to say my name.
But Jeran, you have 167,000 subscribers. Of course I'm going to say your name. Of course.
You forgot to mute me there. You should have muted me. I was able to talk over you, so obviously you're not role playing well enough. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I used to watch that show religiously. I mean, I used to wake up every day when we did our walk. It was turn on Flat Earth Debates. I thought that the show was good. I thought that, Globers would go on there. They would get their arguments kind of out there and then get them destroyed or rebutted. And I thought that it worked really well. But then it became, and I guess it really happened with Whitsitt. I mean, I have to admit that was the first time I was like appalled. So what we need to do is, as a team, join together and recognize we've been lied to. We're being lied to about space, and that we are all on the same team. Think of how many times you've heard the word shill. Okay. In this time that you
right.
Well, who's the shill?
Popular word, man. Look, I've been called everything. Look, I have a relatively small channel, but it's growing. And as soon as people saw I have a little bit of juice, Jeran, you know what I mean? Right. Because people can sense energy. People can sense energy. They can tell. And right away, man, all of a sudden I'm a Jewish Mossad agent. I'm a Swiss mercenary. They want to lie about me. Unevidenced claims over and over and over again. The shill claim. We have people like RV, you know, much love Russian vid, but God forbid somebody puts their hands and makes a signal on the screen and you're going to go off and you're going to claim things about people.
Oh, the guy makes
Unevidenced
some other
claims.
claims.
My, my,
Like, yeah, there's a video of me with Patricia Steer. She starts recording, and then I said something like, "I'm a shill, 33." We're just joking around because that's what people say about it. He uses that as evidence that I'm a shill, and then at 33 I'm a Mason or something. It's so dumb. Like, show me going into a Masonic building ever. Show me, you know, ever wearing a fucking little apron and going around telling secrets. I mean, it's so ridiculous. You can't just say I'm a, because I said, oh, 33, I'm a shill. Like, that's not evidence, dude. That's somebody just talking. Like, to think that that's evidence. And let me just explain something real quick for people to understand. I don't make accusations against other people like that because I respect myself and I want to be respected for my research skills, right? And I know if I accused Nathan Oakley of being a Glober who believes, soon as I say that, if he isn't a Glober, then what do you think he thinks of me? So I just want to explain to people that there's so many people in this community that I no longer have any respect for because they've said things about me that is wrong. So why would I respect their research? They absolutely took something that is completely false, ran with it, and then they expect me to like I don't know, think that they're good researchers. No, I don't. And that's why I don't make accusations like that. RV doesn't understand that when he says to his audience, 100% fact, Jeran is a shill, 100% he's an agent, and I'm not. Does he realize what he just did to me?
right.
He's garbage to me.
Jeran, how much of it you think comes down to good old fashioned jealousy?
A lot. I think a lot of it is. I mean, it's that, and I think there's a lot of people who feel like I'm better than that person, so I should be where they are. And I think that that's just, you know, people might look at Mr. Beast or somebody like that and be like, who's this guy? You know, but they don't realize there's all the time that went into the building of that up, right? So yeah, some people get away with not doing much and they're like, oh, well, but there was a lot of time that it took them to build up what they are. So it's not as easy as just like, oh, I'd be better on the Tonight Show than Jimmy Fallon. Great, you can say that all you want. If you were, then you would be in Hollywood. You would have made movies. You would have been a stand-up comedian. Like, there's many steps that go to him being the host of that show. Not just he didn't come off the street. And so people think like, oh, I do better jokes than him. I'm funnier than him, and that may be true, but it doesn't mean that you should be where they are. And I think that's just we've got people out there that say they're the real Globebusters. They run a show that's called the Real Globebusters, and it's like they act like, oh, we do better work than them, so we. And it's just ridiculous. Like, you've done shitty work the whole time and made a lot of mistakes and said a lot of things wrong and turned your back on a lot of people and lied about people. So to think, I mean, they told people that I sell babies or bats blood on my website. And it's like, we used to do drop shipping for a company called Azure Green, and it's a joke. It's bats blood. It's like ink. It's not real bats blood. But they told people I sell bats blood, and we were a drop ship company. It's just we connected to this website, and it showed their items on my site. And if somebody bought them from our site, we made a couple bucks. And it's like when you see things like that, or they're like, "Oh, Jeran's part of the satanic system. He's satanic or something." I mean, that's just the most ludicrous. Like, what? Why would somebody who's satanic be in the flat Earth? Like, making the videos I have. Have you watched any of my videos? Have I ever?
Right.
I shouldn't. There shouldn't be an inkling of somebody saying that after 9 years. You can't.
It's poor discernment, or they're just being flat out. They're just flat out lying. Like my friend here from the Missing Link Live is here, Jesse Howe, and he puts it like this: you're bearing false witness against your brother when you're doing that, and that's one of the worst things you can do, is because you're making unevidenced, unsupported, positive claims against somebody with no proof whatsoever.
And those people trust you. People who watch RV trust him. Why? Because he says 100% guaranteed. And he's logical in some areas. So I trusted him. And now I have to relook at that entire body of work. I used to think O.J. Simpson was fake because of him. And now I got to go back and look because, you know what? I don't trust RV anymore when he says 100% guaranteed because he says things about Dave Weiss that I know are not true. He says things about me I know are not true. He says Alex Stein faked his mom's death. Not true. He says Rob Skiba's not dead. Not true. He says Mac Parhar is going to show up. Not true. So once you get to that point, I think that the community should what do I say? There's not repercussions for doing that anymore, right? There's no repercussions.
Right.
Channel. If I went on my channel and I said, I think this person's a shill and I think this person's a shill and this, I would get more views. I would get more, guarantee you. Yeah. And so the problem with that is that I'm at least enough of a man to know I would never do that. I don't want your views for becoming Christian. If I became a Christian tomorrow, I would double or triple my donations. I would immediately have more of an audience. If I just said to him, oh, I talked to Jesus last night, and he said, if I just did that, I would have 10 times as many views. So I know that, but to know that and to be able to not do that is a sign of a true person. Whereas there's people out there who lean into their audience, whatever the audience wants them to, they lean into it and they just become that person. And that's the worst thing you can do on YouTube. You won't be around very long because people who do well are people who did what they wanted to do, basically, and just come hell or high water, I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's how I am. And it's not being rewarded. And I don't think that it probably ever will be. But until I'm not getting any views at all, then I'm just going to keep doing what I enjoy. And it kind of keeps me in check, right? Rather than just believe things and go spout them off on my channel, it requires that extra thought. It requires that, let me think about this. Is that correct? And think about different avenues of what people are going to think when I say this. And it helps you build your belief system even better because you're basically keeping an accounting of yourself, right? And that's why I get mad when people say like, oh, Jeran hid his ISS footage. No, I didn't. I put it on my channel because that is important in my steps. Because I used to say that the ISS is completely fake. All those videos are fake. Well, then I went out and I did it myself, and the damn thing, a little TIE fighter thing, flies in front of the moon. So now it helps me get closer to the truth because now I can say, okay, I know people aren't up there. There's no people in that craft. There's no such thing as space. So what are they able to do that moves this little thing? And then I can build my beliefs that way. But when I do that, people will say, you're a liar. You're a shill. You didn't actually film it. You're working on behalf of NASA. So it's like, whatever. I mean, what are you going to do? I used to worry about that, and I really don't anymore. It's just, it sucks because it does hurt your audience, right? RV, who would have a large amount of audience that's the same as me, to call me a shill, guaranteed 100%, whereas I can't combat that by saying the same thing about him because it would be a lie. I don't know that he's a shill. I don't know that he's an actor. I don't know he's an agent. So why would I ever say that? Even if I have ideas that maybe he is, rather than if I say that and he's not, think of what I just did to my credibility with him. And then I also recognize I have an audience that believes me. I know that. I know that now if I went on a show and said, hey, I did an experiment last night and we saw a laser from 75 miles and I started going through it, people would believe me. And I know that. So the problem is I look at that as a privilege and something that I have to respect and I uphold. Other people look at that as an invitation to be liars. And they use that for their benefit and for their growth and for their ego. And they kind of push that. And then I get, this is the problem with the world today. I'll tell you what the problem is going to be. How do we stop fake videos? There is on TikTok, on Instagram, so many fake videos coming out that people believe. And the thing is, if you fake a video, you have a better chance of going viral than not, right? Or not than not. I mean, then you have a better chance of faking something to go viral than to have actually you stumble upon filming something that goes viral, right? So the people set things up now, and we live in a world where clicks equals money, and therefore what gets clicks? Well, the crazy, the insane, the some interaction or altercation with people, but they're all set up. They're becoming all set up. So the problem is that now people are too focused on hits, on views, on going viral, and they will fabricate that. And that kind of scares me a little bit. It does scare me a little because I'm like, okay, well, where do we have to really be vigilant? Like now you can fake any video, right? I mean, you're at the point now where it's impossible to tell that a video is real. So you can't sit back and watch a video today. That's like, I don't know if you've seen this. Now they say there's a 24-hour time lapse from Antarctica. It's the sun going around in a circle like 5 times. Have you seen this video?
No, I saw the old one where it was all copied and pasted, and you can see where it glitched out. I haven't seen anything newer than let's say 3 years.
Around, it's probably a couple years old or whatever. It's got 5 days of the sun just going around Antarctica. And I'm like, they come to me and they're like, Jeran, what's your answer to this? I'm like, I don't have to answer to that. In 2015, when I went looking, there was nothing. There's nothing.
Right.
There was only cut up videos on their own website that stop at a certain time and skip 12 hours every single day. And so that is the evidence that I had to go off of. If now they come out with a video like, look, here's the 20, too late.
It's the same thing we said with the commercial air flights from Australia to South America. None existed until we all started talking about it, and then they magically come up with who knows how to do it, man. I make my show like goofy and stuff. And interestingly enough, dude, like I've already had a number of, let's say, non-flat earthers in here that just by coming to my show for the stupid goofiness, you can tell they're starting to absorb a lot of things. Not everybody, man, but some people are just
no, actually, that's the truth. I had people who messaged me and said that they watched me one time and thought I was the biggest idiot ever, and they laughed hysterically, and they even showed a friend and look how dumb this guy is. And then they were at work and they were listening to me at work, and then they said, then they're driving home and they see a billboard with the globe on it. And then they get home and they watch TV and
Yep.
there's a Globe commercial, and then it's global this, and then all of a sudden it starts to click. And then they say they went back and listened to more of my work, and then they see what I'm saying and realize. So then before you know it, they're like, so then I took 2 weeks and didn't sleep. And so now I'm having to write you and tell you that I'm sorry for thinking, and they didn't have to do that. I don't know that they
Right.
thought those things, but they felt like the need to reach out and say that, keep doing what you're doing, because you do bring people, maybe not right away, but eventually. And I think you're one of those too. And yeah, I appreciate your show. There's not very many good stuff anymore on YouTube, at least that I see. And I'm often working late at night or working out in the garage on my projects or whatever, and I need something to listen to. And I love shows like yours. I used to like Nathan's, where you can just, that there's going to be an episode there, right? So I can go to your channel if I haven't seen it in 2 weeks and know that there's 5 episodes, 10 episodes to choose from. So I like that.
Cool.
That makes it easier to have something to listen to in the background.
I appreciate that. Let me adjust some of the chatters here. So Beyond Belief, it's funny about Beyond Belief. We talked about this earlier. Says why does relative density disequilibrium cease in a free fall? We already talked about it, Beyond Belief. You can go to the beginning of the show. We went over it a lot, dude, because I know you're going to come in here hot with this on Jeran. He's not going to avoid this topic. We already talked about it for like 20 minutes, homie. We're not going to go back to it, all right? I'm just letting him know. What I was thinking, dude, is like you were saying about the newbies that come in. Sometimes it's just the one thing that clicks in your head that tips the whole thing over, like a threshold point is reached. For me, believe it or not, it was Owen Benjamin before he was all yeeted off YouTube, right around 2017, when he was going through his kind of FE awakening, when Weiss was up his ass.
Right.
With the whole Junicorn stuff and all that. I was kind of like, that was mine, because I heard all this in 2015. I didn't reject it outright. I saw a couple of videos. It just said we could see too far, and I registered. I said, but I hadn't challenged my preconceptions yet. I was still trying to fit the flat earth into the pre-indoctrinated model of heliocentrism, which doesn't work. But believe it or not, it was, so I already had like hours built up, and I had been moving it around. But Owen said, look, yeah, okay, they talk about relativity, and you do not feel motion if it's uniform. But they tell us we are in an ellipse, that our pattern around the sun is indeed elliptical. Well, any elliptical orbit would require acceleration and deceleration, obviously, by nature. How wouldn't you feel it? That's what it was, that thing. And everything tipped, and then I realized, the geocentrism, and it was one thing that sort of brought everything together. Did you have a moment like that? Let's get into your background a little bit.
Sure,
what brought you here, dude? I've heard you talk about you had a religious background,
right?
You and your wife were kind of like on the religious thing. Maybe her family was highly religious. I'm going to my memory banks here, but at some point, you and she made a deal that you were going to challenge your beliefs, challenge your preconceptions at all costs, and it brought you here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so she was the first one that said it. Could the earth be flat? Because we kind of said, let's start all over. Let's not believe anything unless we can verify it ourselves. And she said, do you think the earth could be flat? And I'm like, what? And I really thought she was crazy. I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, I thought we're starting all over from the beginning. I'm like, yeah, well, some things are fundamentally true. Some things don't need to be questioned. I'm like, the shape of the earth is one of them. I said, you've gone east and gone to Germany. I've gone west and gone to the Philippines. So clearly the earth is a ball. There's no other way planes could go around it. So she kind of was like, okay, whatever. And then she just kind of left. And then it was kind of bugging me over the next couple of days, but I still believed what I said. And then I was looking into the moon landings because I really wanted to prove to myself, hey, can governments keep big lies? If they can keep big lies, then there's anything possible. And this is before flat earth. It was just thinking to myself, the moon landing would be a big lie. So in looking into that, I came across Eric Dubé's site. And that's why when people say this is a psyop, I have to say, well, that doesn't make any sense. I said, no one psyoped me. I found that map on our own. My wife and I were flat earthers in November of 2014. So even before videos were coming out, we remember sitting at Thanksgiving and like laughing, like if anybody knew we believed the earth is flat. But the reason we believe that is because then I went and found the AE map, or I found it on Eric's site, and it hit me. And there was like a ton of bricks because I realized I just called my wife stupid. Like, what are you stupid? It doesn't make any sense. How could the earth be flat? And then I'm looking at this map, and for the first time, I was like, oh, planes can go around it. Kind of like, oh, on the top of it. So then I just started tripping on that. And then I right away saw, oh, they can't go north-south. Like, oh, thank God. Okay, I'll just go find all the people that have done that. And then that I don't even need to mention to her that I found this map. Well, I went looking, and there's like one person, that's Sir Ranulph Fiennes, and he's a cousin of the Queen and friends with Prince Charles. So I'm like, oh, shit. So I'm like, how could there be billions of people that have gone east-west and one have gone north-south? Like that doesn't jive. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And so I just started to investigate. And then for me, the big thing was in the end of 2014, there was this pilot that was supposed to fly and try and break the world record for circumnavigation north-south with a single man in a plane. And he said, oh, I have these spider tracks attached. So I looked up spider tracks. What are they? And they're like things you can buy at the store. They're basically something you put on your plane, and then it can be tracked on the internet. So I'm like, oh, yeah, is this on his plane? So we'll be able to track it? Great. I want to see what he does when he flies over the South Pole. So you watch his flight, and he flew to Brazil, and then he was supposed to, they have like a map showing you what his route is. So he's supposed to fly Brazil across the South Pole and go to New Zealand. So he flies, leaves Brazil, gets to the South Pole, gets to 90 degrees, and turns around. And the plane comes back and lands in Brazil. I'm like, well, that's crazy. And everybody was asking, like, what's going on? Why is he going back? So then he lands and asks and answers people and says, oh, the weather got really bad, so I had to come back. So then he flew from Brazil over to New Zealand across the water, and then New Zealand up to Alaska and back down to North Carolina, and they gave him the record. And that was the big one for me. I said, okay, hold on. You would never give somebody a circumnavigation record who didn't circumnavigate, right? It'd be like saying that when you did liners in school at the gym that you circumnavigated the sphere of the gym. Like, when you didn't, you just ran to the edge and came back. And so to me, I just said that's a problem. Well, you would never give away awards like that that aren't deserved, that aren't. So that was kind of the catalyst for me. And I still even think, even at that time, even for the first year or two, that I thought I was probably wrong. I really thought that maybe I was missing some portion of it, or that something wasn't clicking. And I thought, well, if I make videos, somebody's going to come out and say, here's why you're wrong. And the people who came out and said, here's why you're wrong, made me more of a flat earther. The more I learned about the globe model, the more I was like, oh my God, I thought some of this stuff was better explained or better proven or better shown. And then when you start learning how they get the distance, because I said, let's put me and you here, Zeeb. Everybody's wiped out on Earth. It's just me and you. And we're like, all right, let's figure out the distance to the moon.
Right.
There is nothing. What do you mean?
So isn't the official story regarding Venus's transit and an assumed radius of Venus based on an association with our assumed radius? Isn't it all based off like basically a posited, unevidenced claim regarding the size of Venus? Is that what it is?
Yeah. And then they went up there and it matched. Imagine that. So
what did they say they did? They said they sent a probe up to Venus.
Yeah, it's because I guess they said Venus is the same size of Earth. We can estimate what it's. I don't even think that that's enough, because again, you can't. They pretend like they know things in space, and they're like, "Oh, well, we know these planets go around in this order," and it's like, no, well, they have so many lies that are just ridiculous. Like, they actually tell people that because of the math or something, that they figured out where Neptune was or something. Have you ever heard this story where they're like, oh, we did the math and we pointed to a space in space. I bet there's a planet there. And then some guy went and looked at his telescope and there was. It's like, that's such horseshit that you wouldn't know where the planet is missing. Like, they're like, oh, we knew that there was some body. No, you
because of the deviation in the supposed orbits is what they say.
That's what they say, right?
That's why they also propose there's a planet 9 apparently.
But you would need to know, like, in order to make that statement, you would need to know you were right about everything else. Because what if you're wrong about the mass of Jupiter? What if you're wrong about the mass of Pluto? Like, if you're wrong about any of those things, then there would be anomalous behaviors. To just say we're right about everything and therefore there's a place right here is insane. But this is the kind of stories that they tell people that people buy. People believe that. People think that, people believe that Galileo went to the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa and dropped balls. And people believe that Newton had an apple fall on his head. These are stories. These are,
dude, to me, their biggest tall tale is Einstein.
Yeah, he's not even, he can even speak.
Yeah. So have you seen the new Oppenheimer movie?
I haven't seen it.
You should watch it. I don't know if you watch movies and stuff, but
I don't, but I can make an exception if it's good.
It's enlightening in a lot of ways. So it's about, Professor Oppenheim, the quote unquote father of the atom bomb and the Manhattan Project, et cetera, et cetera. And he was a theoretical physicist, which falls apart because he basically did nothing. It wasn't a theory behind the physics. If they even created an atom bomb, which I don't think they did, because I don't believe in the strong nuclear force. So how do you harness it? It's unevidenced. I'm not saying there's big bombs that are really big and go
there
boom.
Definitely are big bombs, yes.
Right, but to say I would believe in the hydrogen bomb more than the A bomb, but this is a different story. But here's my point: they presented Einstein; he was a part of the movie, not a big part, and he was given the venerance, of course, that Einstein would be given in a Hollywood elite movie. And come on, man, the theory of relativity, general relativity, 1910, in gravity, bending and warping of space, completely unevidenced. How do you
What
test?
is spinning in
How do
space?
you how do you measure that? How do you test it? It's in space and space and time are concepts. They're abstractions.
Right.
You can't test, you can't verify an abstraction. It's insane. This is what I mean about
And
how the lie has to just increase. Go ahead.
what's the most famous equation?
Equals MC squared.
That alone is so dumb. And you'll, if I say that, anybody who's a glober here right now will be like, oh my God, this guy's making fun of E equals MC squared. Doesn't he realize? Like, they don't know anything that they're talking about. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I feel so good to be able to, at this point in my life, say that and not give a shit, because it doesn't make sense. And until somebody, if you want me to believe it, then you will explain it, not just laugh at me and say, well, everybody's known that, you know, and Einstein's way smarter than you. Great. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. You need to give me, if you're going to make some claim that there's some letters that humans came up with that explain the universe, E equals MC squared, then you need to explain it to me. You need to sway my beliefs. They didn't sway our beliefs. They indoctrinated us with beliefs, because you cannot sway somebody to believe that they're spinning on a ball in a vacuum that's keeping the atmosphere attached. It's flying through space. It's, you know, keeping us all attached to it, even though, like, everything we know about reality, what happens on the gravitron, right? You get thrown to the outside, right? You don't get pulled to the inside. You get thrown to the outside. What happens in space with gas? We know what gas does in space. It expands in every direction. They tell us that it does the opposite at some point for some reason. Oh, stars are because there's gravity and they all pulled the gas to themselves. What do you mean? In space, gas goes out. If we let a balloon go up, it starts getting bigger because the gas is trying to get out. And then eventually there's no pressure holding it in, and it leaves, and it goes violently in every direction. So how in the hell do stars get made? Oh, well, because if it's big enough, then it starts pulling to its center. No, it doesn't. We've never seen that. You're making shit up. You're saying that gas pulls other gas, and that doesn't happen. So their entire model can only be indoctrinated to you. It can only be sold to you as a child and then reinforced through society norms. It can't be something that's found intuitively or through evidence or research, unless you believe their stories, and their stories are all set up. Everything's set up. I call it the cookies that are left out for Santa. What we're dealing with is a bunch of babies who woke up and found cookies and said, Santa must be real. There's fucking cookies. It matches our theory. Our theory is Santa exists. We found cookies. Therefore, Santa's real. That's what we're dealing with. And can you ever convince that child that Santa isn't real? Again, lately what I've heard is, what it works. Okay, listen, do you understand what a deception is? How could it be a deception if it didn't work, genius? Of course the globe works. That's why it's a deception. Like, what do they expect? Like, they're like, yeah, but we measure with the Coriolis force, and the Coriolis force works. Okay, well, what do you expect? If it didn't work, wouldn't that be a pretty obvious tale that something's wrong? So that's what deceptions are. Deceptions are things that work. That's why they're deceptions. If they weren't things that work, if they didn't work, they're not a very good deception. You know, you're not going to buy a car from somebody that doesn't run. If they tell you it runs and you go test drive and it doesn't run, you're going to be like, oh, I'm not buying this. You said it ran. It does sometimes, but it's not running now. I don't know. Okay, you can keep the car. But to believe like they do is to walk into that situation and just assume that everything has to be exactly as we're told, no matter what. It just is. It is. We would never be lied to. But then to say it's a deception and it works, it'd be like me buying a car and somebody saying, dude, you bought this car. This car's a piece of shit, but it works. Yeah, okay, maybe it works. But, you know, have you checked that there's recalls on it and the wheels, you know, whatever. There's lots of reasons. There's other problems with things. And and they've got this whole position. And Austin and I keep telling the story about if we were adopted, because it's a good analogy for them demanding that we have answers to how things work, right? Well, how does this work then? Well, how does the seasons work? Well, listen, we're telling you that this is the evidence that we've been lied to about where we live. That's it. If we postulate about some other things, it's because we're trying to get to the bottom of it and we're spitballing things. But certainly to demand that we know the answers to something, that has nothing to do with the actual exposing of the lie. And you can say it works. Well, our model works. Okay, yeah, that's why it's a deception. That's why celestial navigation works on the globe, because that's how they built it. So to be like, it works. Okay, if you want to believe in lies, go ahead. you can go ahead and believe you live on a spinning ball. Like I used to think I needed to convince that person, but not anymore. I don't think now it's about getting information out to people in case they're out there looking for it. Because I also feel like only those who go looking for truth will find it. Like my friend came into my store at CVS and told me that 9/11 was an inside job. And I told him, get out. Like, don't talk to me about that. Like, that's just stupid. And I really felt like it was stupid. And I would have thought it was stupid no matter how many times he would have told me that. And in fact, if he didn't drop it, and he dropped it and he never talked to me about it again until after I came to the same conclusion. But if he would have kept coming at me, I could have dug my feet in and been like, no, absolutely not. And then what I would do is I would go home and I would start looking for evidence that it was real, which of course that's easy to find. That's what they want you to find, right? So you're going to find the NIST report that says it's a structural fire. You're going to find all the evidence that's out there. It's cookies. You're finding cookies left for Santa. And you're saying, oh, these cookies prove that the theory's right. But they're the ones setting up. They're the parents. They're the ones eating the cookies and putting them out for you to find. So people can't realize that. They don't think that there's a deception like that. There would never be a deception like that. I know that there is. I know that that's the evil people that we have at the top don't care about you. They don't care about your family. Another thing I hear about all the time is people saying that they don't kill people during events. They'll kill whoever. They don't give a shit. They don't give it. There are people dying in wars and things like that. You may say the war's fake, and it is. It's not an actual battle between the countries like you might think. They're usually in cahoots, but the people die. People do die. If you think nobody's died in Israel right now, or you don't think anybody's died in the Ukraine war, you're just off. People have died. Is it as much as they say? Is it the ways that they say? No, but we're all expendable to them, really expendable. So it's just a problem of getting people to see that it's not always as simple as what they put in front of you. You can't just say, Bigfoot is my hypothesis. He brings the mail at 12 o'clock. I go out there every day at 12:30 and it's there. Therefore, Bigfoot exists. You missed a whole bunch of things. And they don't realize they missed things. You got people going, oh, the sun sets at 270. And they just parrot exactly what they're taught and with no clue. Nobody's gone to space. One of the things is Space Force, right? Space Force is 18,000 enlisted members. Guess how many have gone to space? So don't tell me space is real. And then we have Space Force, 18,000 people, and 0 have gone to space. That's not very real in my book. And so
yeah, the Space Force thing, it's see what they're doing. They're doubling and tripling it down on the whole presentation. Again, because it just is to combat logic. They want to make people like me and you look crazy. They want me and you to look crazy to everybody who stumbles across this video and your videos.
That's why we're still here, right? That's why they say, because people always ask me, if you're telling the truth, why is your channel still here? It's because they need me. First of all, we have exposed some things that they've cleaned up. So we are actually helping them in a way, because if there's any holes in their model or their plan, if we expose them, then they go clean it up. So I found sites that have been taken down since then. The Earth.Null school was huge. People were going to that site and saying, "Oh my God, the weather patterns actually work. The currents actually work," and then they had to take it down. So these are actually things that we're actually directly affecting. The thing that does kind of frighten me a little bit is because I don't know if you believe this. Do you believe that there's some event coming? Let me ask you it this way: NASA is saying they're going to go back to the moon. Do you think eventually they'll try and fake that, or is this just them waiting for something to happen that will effectively make that obsolete?
I don't know, but here's what I'll say. I don't think I always put it like this, Jeran. I don't think they can hold the system together for much longer. I think their Ponzi scheme is about to topple. I think their fiat currency, their wallah based on bullshit nothing currency, is about to be exposed for the empty fraud that it is. And I do believe enough people are understanding the lies of the government and the elite powers that shouldn't be. So I do think that we are facing some event. I would bet on that more likely than not, because it seems as though there's these cyclical resets. Now, whether they initiate these resets or they just know the astrology or they're just aware of information we're not, I think they build up civilization and then they tear it down at a certain point, on and on and on. So that's a long answer to say, yeah, I do think they're ready to trash it.
I think that they go underground at some point, whether they initiate the cataclysm or whether it's cyclical, like you said. I'm not really sure, but it's almost like we kind of have to almost thank COVID in a weird way. I don't think as many people would be awake if it wasn't for that. They brought people home who are working. When you work, you don't have time to, I know I was at work. You don't have time to research. You don't have time to care. You have time to work, and then you basically get your view of the world through some news program for a half hour every day, watching the news, listen to it on the way to work. That's your world belief. That's your belief system. It then becomes whatever the TV or the radio tells you. So to those people that were in jobs and then they all went home and they had nothing to do, those people, well, they had nothing to do, but they had the internet. So you had everybody looking things up, researching, and that's really the catalyst. Any of us here are here because we started looking things up, right? We're here because we actually looked into things. You can't be here if you just have a job and just like, well, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Yeah, you'd be at your job or you'd be doing something with friends. You wouldn't care about this. So to me, I do think you're right. I wonder sometimes whether it's a cataclysm that they put on or something, but I do think something will happen in our lifetime. I used to not think that, but I do think now, because you're right. I don't think this can go on like it is. The gig's kind of up and they're going to keep trying to put more pressure on people. And this is the story throughout history. Throughout history, the reason governments get toppled is because they become too tyrannical and the people have to turn them over. Now, the only problem for us is, have they feminized the men enough? Have they changed the dynamic of the male-female, the warrior class, if you will? They've even gone as far as like, think of who our number one warriors would be. Like, well, they would be these guys that are sports athletes, right? Like the elite of the elite, the NBA, the football players that are these specimens. So think about what they did with those people. They gave them a ton of money. So the first thing those guys do is go buy a house, go buy a car, go buy land. And then what do they have to do? They have to have somebody to keep the house. So they get married. Then what do they do? We got to have something for her to stay home for. They have kids. Well, once you've done that, you've eliminated that man from being a warrior. The man can no longer just go out and battle because he cares about his family. So they've essentially, like the idea of going to Antarctica with a team of people. It's hard to find a team of people that are willing to just say, yep, screw everything, I'm going. Because like for me, I would love to do that, but I've got a wife and kid. And I don't think that's the smartest move for me to be like, gung ho, let's go to Antarctica for a trip that if we're wrong, we might not come back. I mean, that's harder for me to do. And it's hard for men to do now because they've done this on purpose. They've set it up. So they've made it very difficult for any of us to just say, we can't think of how they discovered everything and how they mapped everything. They used people's children. They used people through the draft and through the army. That's how they did it. So we don't have that. I don't have the ability to take your kids with me to Antarctica. Sorry. And that's not allowed. So you see, my point is that we don't have nearly the structure that the government had in setting up the lie. So to defeat the lie is going to take just us reporting it, us pointing it out, us saying it, repeating it, showing it. Like you said, it takes that little, my new thing is, I want to bring up the lies constantly. The Stephen Hawking, why did Stephen Hawking lie in his video about proving the earth is curved by CGI a helicopter, which has been proven? There's no question. There's no Glober. If any Glober wants to debate me, I'll debate you anytime, any platform, anywhere on, did Stephen Hawking fake his helicopter accident? It's easy. Did Nat Geo use a optical illusion to confuse people about the boat and say that it's going over the curb when you can see the horizon way behind it? Yes. So, did all these little lies that they do to keep bringing them up? The one about gas. We know what gas does. If you ask anybody, what does gas do if we let it into a vacuum? They'd be like, oh, it expands. Okay. What are stars? They're gas. Okay. Don't they expand in space? Oh, well, there's, and then they get into this whole where they double speak and they just repeat the government lies, even though no one's ever seen gas do what they claim it does. So I just want to keep pointing those things out because I do think everyone should get a chance to hear this argument and they can decide for themselves. And if somebody sits down and honestly goes through all the evidence and they decide, like this pastor guy who was on with Austin and I, we know that he was watching Professor Dave and then now he goes on McToon's channel. The guy's got no chance, but I don't care. I did our job. He's a pastor. We sat down, we explained to him the flat earth. We showed him what he's believing is wrong and how he's just buying into what these guys are saying. And he decided to go on Toon's channel and join Team Globe. What can I really do about that? That's just somebody falling for it, and he will pay the prices of that. It's not my job to now go and convince him and cry and try and get him back. I don't really care. Somebody who made that choice has really made the wrong choice. They've obviously been hoodwinked, if you will. And so that's the problem, is that these guys are just all confused. They've been lied to. They've been lied. Yeah, they've been lied to, and they've been filled with lies that they think are truths. And so they just have no chance. I feel so good that I got out of it. I feel so happy. That's what's important. I'll be able to raise my son with that understanding. My family life is happier. Yeah.
Hey, the truth matters. We're in a world where they've convinced people where that's not. And like I said before, if anything's going to set you free, it's going to be the truth. All right, before we let you go, Jeran, let's do something fun, okay? Word association. I'm going to go. What?
I thought we were going to dance, but okay, good.
Well, we could sing if you want, but we'll do that after you leave. We'll break into song. So I'm going to go around the flat Earth community. I'm going to say a name. We're going to do a word association. Just say the first word that comes to mind, okay?
Okay.
Dubai.
Shill.
Nodell.
Mist.
Dell.
Smart.
Witsit.
Too smart.
Weiss.
Fun.
Karen.
I was going to say smart. I'll say smart.
I'd say hot. Mark.
Dork. First name.
All right, we'll leave it on that, Jeran. It was a pleasure having you, man. Hopefully we'll talk again, dude.
Yeah, anytime. Keep doing what you're doing. Like the show, and you're giving people a place to go and hang out and be in the chat. I think I'm a big fan of that as well. People like that. So keep doing what you're doing. And next time you need me, just holler at the Jew, and the Jew will holler at me.
All right, we'll put up the Jew signal.
Yeah. What is the Jew signal?
I don't know. Maybe the star ram. Who knows?
Oh, you know that. See, he's very smart. Yeah, there's no snore, David. All right. Thanks, D.
All right, homie. And link to Jeran's channel multiple times in the chat. Head over there. Get some truthiness on, everybody. All right, man. Great having you.
All right, you too. Bye.
Jeran, everybody, from the Jeranism channel.